Tuesday evening, 7:43 p.m. I was sitting in my home office, coffee growing cold beside me, reviewing the monthly security footage from our own system. The September heat was finally breaking, and Nicole had opened the windows to let in the cool evening air. I could hear her on the phone in the kitchen, probably with another client. Real estate never sleeps. Premier Security Solutions has been my life's work for the past 8 years. Built it from nothing with my best friend Mike Donovan in a cramped office above a sandwich shop, surviving on ramen noodles and determination. Now we're the go-to security firm for half the city's elite. Corporate executives, celebrities, politicians, anyone who values their privacy and safety enough to pay top dollar for it. Trust is everything in this business. People hand you the keys to their most private spaces, their most valuable possessions. You install cameras in their bedrooms, motion sensors in their safes, panic buttons by their beds. One breach of trust, one whisper of impropriety, and your reputation is finished. That's why I'm obsessive about our protocols, our background checks, our security clearances. It's also why I check our own system religiously. If I'm going to guarantee bulletproof security to clients paying six figures for installations, my own setup better be impenetrable. That's why the gap in the footage stopped me cold. I was scrolling through the weekly summary when I noticed it. A 2-hour block on Thursday afternoon where all 6 cameras had gone dark. Not a power failure, not a system error. A complete blackout across the entire network. "Nicole?" I called down the hallway. No answer. I could still hear her voice drifting from the kitchen, animated and cheerful. Probably Mrs. Patterson again. Nicole had been working with her for weeks on some high-end properties. I pulled up the system logs, scrolling back through the past few weeks. There it was again. Thursday, September 14th, 2 p.m. to 4:03 p.m. Complete blackout across all 6 cameras. No recording, no motion detection, nothing. I felt that familiar tingle at the base of my skull. The same feeling I got when I spotted a vulnerability in a client system. Something was wrong. I scrolled back further. Thursday, September 7th. Same thing. August 31st. August 24th. My hands started moving faster across the keyboard. August 17th, August 10th, August 3rd. Every single Thursday for the past 9 months, like clockwork. 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., the entire system went dark. What the hell? I pulled up the power consumption logs. During those blackout periods, the system wasn't losing power. It was being professionally bypassed. Someone was using the master installer codes to shut down the entire network, disable all recording functions, then reactivate everything exactly 2 hours later with surgical precision. The master installer codes. Only 3 people had access to those. Me, Mike, and Terry Walsh. But Terry had moved to Seattle last year to work for his brother's construction firm. Even if he wanted to use them, he was 1,200 miles away. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. 9 months of Thursday blackouts, in my own house, using codes that only my business partner and I had access to. My phone was in my hand before I consciously decided to dial. Mike's number went straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's James. Call me back when you get this. Need to ask you something about the system codes." I hung up and stared at the timeline. 38 separate incidents, each one planned, executed with professional expertise, and covered up perfectly. If I hadn't been doing my monthly review, I never would have noticed the pattern. Nicole's laughter echoed from the kitchen, followed by her saying goodbye to whoever she'd been talking to. A moment later, Her heels clicked across the hardwood as she walked toward my office. "Hey, honey," she said, leaning against the doorframe. She was wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one that brought out her eyes. "Sorry about the noise. Mrs. Patterson is being incredibly picky about these houses. Wants to see everything twice before making any decisions." "Mrs. Patterson." "The client I've been working with. Remember? I told you about her last week. She's relocating from Chicago, needs something in the million-plus range." Nicole checked her watch. "Actually, I'm showing her 3 more properties tomorrow afternoon. Might run late." Tomorrow was Thursday. "Where are you showing her houses?" "Oh, all over. Westfield Estates, Maple Hills, that new development near the lake. You know how these corporate wives are. They want to see everything before they commit." She smiled and walked over to kiss my forehead. "Don't wait up if I'm late. Some of these showings can run long." After she left, I sat staring at my computer screen for another hour. Then I opened my laptop and logged into the MLS system with Nicole's credentials. She'd given me her password months ago when I helped her update some listings after her computer crashed. I searched for Patterson. Nothing in her active files. I tried different spellings. Patterson, Patterson, Patterson. No client named Patterson in her closed transactions either. No corporate relocation accounts. No million-dollar listings in Westfield Estates or Maple Hills. My coffee mug hit the desk harder than I intended, sending cold liquid across my notes. I barely noticed as I grabbed paper towels and cleaned up the mess, my mind racing through possibilities. Thursday was less than 18 hours away. I spent Wednesday morning at a security supply store in the next county, paying cash for equipment Mike would never recognize. Battery-powered, motion-activated cameras with built-in storage, completely independent of any network or central system. Military-grade units used for surveillance operations, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. Back home, I spent 2 hours installing them. One in the master bedroom, hidden inside a fake smoke detector I mounted near the ceiling fan. One covering the living room from inside a decorative bookend on the entertainment center. One in the kitchen with a clear view of the front door, disguised as a carbon monoxide detector. Each camera recorded directly to encrypted micro SD cards with enough storage for 12 hours of high-definition footage. Motion activated, with infrared capability for low-light recording. If someone was coming into my house every Thursday, I was going to know exactly who, when, and what they were doing. At the office, Mike seemed normal. Too normal, maybe. "Morning, partner," he said, walking into my office with his usual grin and a cup of coffee from the place down the street. He'd been bringing me coffee every Wednesday morning for 3 years, claimed it was his way of making sure we started the week off right. "Ready for another day of making the world safer?" "Always," I replied, watching his face carefully. "You have that site inspection this afternoon?" Mike nodded, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Yeah, the Morrison place. Should take about 2 hours. These rich folks and their paranoid security requests, you know how it is. Mrs. Morrison specifically asked for me to handle it personally." The Morrison place. I knew that job intimately. It was a routine maintenance check on a system we'd installed 6 months ago. Something our junior technicians could handle blindfolded in 30 minutes. There was no reason for Mike to spend 2 hours there, and Mrs. Morrison had never requested specific personnel for maintenance calls. "Want me to send Rodriguez instead?" "You've been pulling a lot of these Thursday afternoon calls lately. Might be good to delegate some of the routine stuff." Mike shrugged, taking a sip of his coffee. "Nah, I don't mind getting out of the office." Besides, these personal touch visits help with customer retention. You know how word of mouth works in this business. I nodded and turned back to my computer screen. Fair point. What time are you heading out? Probably around 1:30. Traffic gets crazy if I wait much longer. Mike stood up, pausing at my office door. You okay, man? You seem a little tense. Just tired. Nicole's been keeping weird hours with this new client. Lots of evening showings. The real estate game, right? Feast or famine? Mike grinned. At least business is good. Both our wives working their tails off to keep us in the lifestyle we've become accustomed to. After he left, I pulled up our client database and searched for Morrison. The account showed routine maintenance calls every 6 months, with the last one completed in March by Rodriguez. No special requests, no customer complaints, no reason for the owner to personally handle what should be a standard service call. I cross-referenced Mike's timesheet with our GPS tracking system. Every Thursday for the past 9 months, Mike's van had been logged out for site inspections from 1:30 to 4:30 p.m. But the GPS coordinates didn't match the addresses on his work orders. Instead, they showed him parked 2 blocks from my house. At 1:30 p.m., I told my assistant I was heading out to check on a job site. Instead, I drove to the parking lot of an office complex 2 streets over from my house, close enough to monitor my hidden cameras remotely through the mobile app, far enough away that Mike wouldn't spot my truck if he was watching for it. I pulled up the camera feed on my tablet and settled in to wait. The living room camera showed our normal Wednesday afternoon. Afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. Everything exactly as Nicole and I had left it that morning. At 1:47 p.m., I got a text from Nicole. Heading out early for the Patterson showings. Might be a long afternoon. Love you. At 2:05 p.m., Mike's white Premier security van turned into my driveway. At 2:07 p.m., Nicole's silver Honda Accord pulled up behind him. I watched as Mike got out of the car first, glanced around casually, and then walked up to my front door. He didn't knock. He didn't ring the doorbell. Instead, he walked straight to the fake rock by the garage, the one where Nicole and I kept the spare key, and took it out as if he had done it hundreds of times before. Nicole got out of the car, adjusted her skirt, and looked at her reflection in the car window. She was wearing the red dress I had bought her for Valentine's Day, the one she said was too fancy for everyday wear. She looked excited, nervous, as if she were preparing for something important. They met at my front door and Mike hugged her. It wasn't a friendly hug between family friends. It was a kiss, the kind I hadn't gotten from my wife in months. Then they disappeared into my house. I sat in my car staring at the screen of my tablet and watching the time tick by. 2:09 p.m., 2:10 p.m., 2:11 p.m. The camera in the kitchen showed them coming through the front door. Mike's hands were already around Nicole's waist, pulling her closer. Nicole laughed, saying something I couldn't hear through the camera's audio. They quickly crossed the kitchen, Mike's van keys carelessly tossed on the counter next to Nicole's purse. The camera in the living room captured them for a moment as they headed for the stairs. Nicole was holding Mike's hand, leading him to our bedroom as if she were the mistress of the house. Which, legally speaking, was true. At 2:15 p.m., they disappeared upstairs, and the camera in the bedroom took over the surveillance. At 2:30 p.m., I started my truck and drove home. I used my garage remote and parked inside, just like any other day. I could hear voices from upstairs. Nicole's laugh, Mike's lower rumble, the creak of our bed frame. I pulled out my phone and started recording as I walked through my own house. The stairs didn't creak. I'd had them professionally reinforced when we moved in 5 years ago. I made it to the top landing without a sound, my phone camera rolling, audio picking up every sound coming from behind my bedroom door. The door was open. They were on my bed. Nicole underneath, Mike on top. Both of them so focused on each other, they didn't notice me standing in the doorway with my phone raised, recording everything. "Get out!" They froze mid-motion. Nicole's eyes went wide with terror, her hands instinctively grabbing for the sheet to cover herself. Mike's head snapped toward me, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and pure panic in the span of 2 seconds. "Both of you, get out of my house now. James!" Mike scrambled off my wife, reaching for his clothes scattered across my bedroom floor. "Jesus, man, let me explain. Explain it to your lawyer." Nicole pulled the sheet up to her chin, tears already starting to flow. "James, please, it's not what—" 38 times, Nicole. She stopped mid-sentence, her face going white. 38 Thursdays over the past 9 months. I have GPS records from Mike's van showing him parked 2 blocks from here every Thursday afternoon. I have system logs showing exactly when he used his master installer codes to disable our cameras. I have fuel card receipts showing him buying gas in our neighborhood every Thursday. I have your fake client appointments, your non-existent showings, your complete fabrication of Mrs. Patterson and her $1 million house hunt. I kept the phone steady, recording everything. So don't you dare tell me it's not what it looks like. Mike was trying to pull his pants on while backing toward the door, his shirt inside out, his face flushed with panic and embarrassment. "James, come on, we can work this out. We're partners, we're friends." "We were friends. Now you're just another security breach I need to fix." I followed them downstairs, still recording, as they grabbed their scattered clothes and stumbled toward the front door. Nicole was crying openly now, mascara running down her cheeks, trying to zip up her dress with shaking hands. "James, please, can we talk about this? Can we just sit down and—" I held out my hand. "Keys." "What?" "The spare key Mike's been using." "Your house key, your garage door opener. Hand them over." Nicole fumbled in her purse, pulling out the keys with trembling fingers. Mike held out the spare key like it was contaminated. "You have 1 hour to get whatever you need from this house," I told Nicole. "After that, the locks change." "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem anymore." Mike paused at the door, shirt half-buttoned, looking like he wanted to say something. I held up the phone, still recording. "Whatever you're thinking of saying, remember that everything is being documented for the divorce proceedings and the criminal investigation." "Criminal investigation?" Mike's voice cracked. "Unauthorized use of security codes for personal gain, violation of client privacy protocols, breach of fiduciary duty, corporate espionage." I smiled coldly. "You used your position in our company to compromise the security of my home. That's a felony, Mike." They left without another word, Mike's van squealing out of my driveway like he was fleeing a crime scene, which technically he was. I stood in my doorway, watching them disappear down the street, then went inside and called my lawyer. "Patricia, it's James Russo. I need to file for divorce, and I need to invoke the morality clause in my business partnership agreement. I also need to know about criminal charges for unauthorized use of security access codes. How fast can you move on this?" Patricia Hammond had been our corporate attorney since we started the business. She was sharp, ruthless, and exactly the kind of lawyer you wanted when your world was falling apart. "How much evidence do you have?" she asked. "Video footage, GPS tracking, system access logs, financial records, phone records, and about 9 months' worth of documented patterns. Plus, I just recorded them in the act. I'll have preliminary paperwork ready by morning. Can you be in my office at 8 a.m.? By Thursday evening, the divorce papers were filed. By Friday morning, Mike was facing a forced buyout of his 40% stake in Premier Security Solutions. The partnership agreement we'd signed in 2016 was ironclad. Patricia had made sure of that. Any conduct detrimental to the business, including the unauthorized use of security codes for personal gain, triggered an immediate buyout at book value. No negotiation, no appeals, no grace period. Mike's 40% stake was worth about $800,000 on the open market. The book value buyout would net him exactly $200,000, and that was only if he agreed to sign the non-compete clause, prohibiting him from working in the security industry within a 100-mile radius for 2 years. The alternative was a lawsuit that would make everything public record, destroy what was left of his reputation, and likely result in criminal charges. He tried calling me 17 times Friday morning. I let them all go to voicemail, then listened to each one with Patricia sitting beside me, taking notes. James, pick up the damn phone. We need to talk about this like adults. This is our business, man. 8 years we built this together. You can't just throw it all away over a mistake. Delete. Look, I know I screwed up, but destroying both our livelihoods isn't going to fix anything. Nicole and I, that's over. I swear to you on my kids' lives it's done. But the business doesn't have to suffer for my stupidity. Delete. James, I'm begging you. I've got a mortgage, I've got 2 kids in college, Sarah's gonna kill me if she finds out about this. You're not just destroying me, you're destroying my whole family. Please, let's work something out. Delete. Fine, you want to play hardball? I helped build this company too. I've got rights, I've got equity, and I'm not going to let you steal everything we worked for just because you're pissed off. My lawyer says, delete. The messages got more desperate as the day went on, then angry, then desperate again. By evening, Mike was crying on my voicemail, promising to do anything, sign anything, if I'd just give him another chance. I saved every single message. At 3 p.m. Friday, Mike showed up at the office. I was in the conference room with Patricia and our corporate attorney when my assistant buzzed in. Mr. Russo, Mike Donovan is here. He says he needs to speak with you urgently. Send him in. Mike looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. His hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion and stress. He took one look at the lawyers sitting around the conference table and knew exactly what was happening. The buyout papers, Patricia said, sliding a thick folder across the polished mahogany table. You have 24 hours to sign, or we proceed with a lawsuit that will make everything public record. Mike picked up the folder with shaking hands, his eyes scanning the summary page. James, please. Can we talk privately? Just for 5 minutes? Man to man? Everything I have to say to you can be said in front of my attorneys. I was your best man at your wedding. I'm Tyler's godfather. I was there when he was born, for Christ's sake. Doesn't 15 years of friendship count for something? You were my best man. You are Tyler's godfather. That's what makes this so much worse. I leaned forward across the table. You didn't just betray my marriage, Mike. You used your position in our company, your access to our security protocols to violate my home. You turned our business partnership into a tool for adultery. He flipped through the documents, his face growing paler with each page. 200,000? James, this company is worth $2 million. My 40% stake is worth 800,000 minimum. Market value is for partners in good standing. You violated your fiduciary duty, compromised client security protocols, used company resources for personal gain, and committed what amounts to corporate espionage. Book value is what you get. And the non-compete? 100 miles, 2 years. You can't work in security, surveillance, or any related field within a 100-mile radius of this city for 24 months after you sign. Patricia's voice was ice cold. Or we can let a judge decide after we present all the evidence publicly, including the criminal referral we're preparing for the district attorney. Mike set the papers down and looked at me across the table. You're really going to destroy me over this? You destroyed yourself. I'm just documenting it. He signed the papers Saturday morning, along with a confidentiality agreement that prevented him from discussing the reasons for his departure with anyone, including prospective employers. On Monday morning, I sent a carefully worded email to all our commercial clients. Dear valued client, Premier Security Solutions is undergoing a partnership restructuring effective immediately. Michael Donovan is no longer associated with the company due to violations of security protocols and breach of professional conduct. As a precautionary measure, all access codes previously held by Mr. Donovan have been revoked and changed. We will be conducting complimentary security audits for all clients to ensure the integrity of your systems. James Russo will personally oversee all future installations and maintenance to ensure the highest level of security and professionalism you have come to expect from Premier Security Solutions. Thank you for your continued trust in our services. Within 3 hours of sending that email, I had 12 calls from clients specifically requesting that only I handle their accounts going forward. 2 of them mentioned they'd heard rumors about Mike and wanted reassurance that their security hadn't been compromised. Word spreads fast in the security industry, especially when it involves someone who can't be trusted with access codes. By Tuesday, 3 other security firms had called asking if the rumors about Mike were true. I referred them to our corporate attorney. By Wednesday, Mike's bonding company had received an anonymous tip about his conduct and opened an investigation. In our business, you can't operate without proper bonding and licensing. Mike's professional certifications were suspended pending the outcome of their review. Mike's career in security was effectively over. Nicole's real estate license lasted exactly 17 days longer. Her broker, Tom Harrison, called me on a Thursday morning, 3 weeks after I'd caught them in my bed. Tom had been in real estate for 25 years, ran one of the most respected firms in the city, and valued his reputation above everything else. James, I need to ask you about something, and I hope you'll be straight with me. Nicole's been using our lockbox system to access properties for client showings. But when I cross-reference her appointments with our MLS listings, things don't add up. Properties that aren't for sale, client meetings that don't exist in our database, showings for houses we don't have listed. Do you know anything about this? I did know something about it. Patricia had prepared a complete timeline of Nicole's showings over the past 9 months, cross-referenced with actual MLS listings, lockbox access logs, and GPS data from her phone. 38 fake appointments at empty houses, all scheduled for Thursday afternoons, all used as cover for her affair with Mike. Tom, I'm going through a divorce. My attorney has been tracking Nicole's whereabouts as part of the proceedings. I think you need to see what we found. We met that afternoon in Tom's office. I brought Patricia and a thick folder of evidence. Tom's face grew darker with each document we showed him. She's been using fake client appointments to access empty properties for personal reasons, Patricia explained. We have lockbox access records showing her entering homes that weren't on the market, scheduling showings with clients who don't exist, and falsifying her appointment calendar to cover an extramarital affair. Tom rubbed his temples. How many times? 38 documented instances over 9 months. Jesus. Tom looked at me apologetically. James, I'm sorry. I had no idea she was using our systems this way. This is a massive ethics violation, not to mention potential liability for the firm. The State Real Estate Commission takes ethics violations very seriously, especially when they involve misuse of lockbox systems and fraudulent client representation. Using fake appointments to access empty properties for personal reasons violated about 6 different professional standards. Nicole's license was suspended pending a formal hearing. The hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks later, giving her time to prepare a defense if she had one. She didn't. The evidence was overwhelming. GPS records showing her at properties she had no legitimate reason to access. Lockbox logs proving she'd entered homes that weren't listed for sale. Phone records showing no communication with the fictional clients she'd claimed to be meeting. Even if she eventually got her license back, she'd have to retake all her courses, complete additional ethics training, and start over as a rookie agent. Her client base was gone, her reputation destroyed, her income reduced to zero. Meanwhile, the divorce proceedings moved faster than I'd expected. When you have GPS evidence, security system logs, photographic proof of adultery, and financial records showing a pattern of deception, there's not much room for negotiation. Nicole hired a lawyer, David Marcus, who specialized in difficult divorces. He was expensive, aggressive, and exactly the kind of attorney you'd want if you were guilty as sin but hoping to minimize the damage. Our first settlement conference was a disaster. My client admits that mistakes were made, Marcus began, but she believes Mr. Russo's response has been disproportionate and vindictive. She's lost her career, her income, and her home. Surely that's punishment enough for what amounts to a marital indiscretion. Patricia smiled coldly. A marital indiscretion. Your client conducted a systematic affair for 9 months using professional resources to facilitate adultery, lying to her husband daily, and compromising the security of their home. She violated her marriage vows, her professional ethics, and arguably several state laws. What exactly are you seeking? Marcus asked. Sole custody of the minor child, with supervised visitation for Mrs. Russo, pending completion of parenting classes and psychological evaluation. No alimony due to adultery. Division of property according to the premarital ownership records, with the house remaining with Mr. Russo, as it was his separate property prior to marriage. Marcus's pen stopped moving. Supervised visitation. That's extremely harsh for a case involving adultery, but no abuse or neglect. Your client demonstrated a pattern of deception and poor judgment that calls into question her fitness as a parent. She lied consistently for 9 months, compromised her family's security, and prioritized an extramarital affair over her parental responsibilities. The negotiations dragged on for 2 more sessions, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Nicole had no leverage, no credible defense, and limited financial resources to fight a prolonged battle. Tyler was the wild card that ended it. At 13, he was old enough for the court to consider his preferences. The family court mediator, Mrs. Rodriguez, interviewed him privately to understand his feelings about custody arrangements. Tyler came home from that meeting looking older than his years. "What did you tell her?" I asked. "The truth. That I don't want to live with Mom." His voice was quiet but steady. "She lied to us for months, Dad. Every Thursday she told us she was working, but she was doing that. How can I trust anything she says now?" The mediator's report was devastating for Nicole. Tyler felt betrayed not just by the affair, but by the systematic deception that had surrounded it. He'd lost respect for his mother and explicitly requested to remain with me. Judge Patricia Williams reviewed the case files, the mediator's report, and the evidence Patricia had assembled. The hearing lasted less than 2 hours. "This case involves more than simple marital infidelity," Judge Williams stated. "Mrs. Russo engaged in a systematic pattern of deception that involved professional misconduct, compromise of family security, and prioritization of an extramarital relationship over parental responsibilities. The evidence demonstrates poor judgment and questionable fitness as a custodial parent. I was awarded sole custody. Nicole got supervised visitation, 4 hours every other weekend at a family visitation center, with the possibility of unsupervised visits after she completed parenting classes and demonstrated stability for 6 months. The property division was straightforward. The house had been mine before we married, so it stayed mine. Nicole got her car, her personal belongings, and about $5,000 from our joint savings account, enough for a security deposit on an apartment and a few months of basic living expenses. She also got the privilege of paying child support on whatever income she could generate with a suspended real estate license and a destroyed reputation. The final papers were signed on a Tuesday in November. Nicole cried through the entire proceeding, occasionally glancing at me like she expected some last-minute reprieve. I felt nothing but relief that it was over. Mike disappeared after his own divorce was finalized 2 months later. His wife Sarah had filed the day after she found out about the affair, seeking sole custody of their 2 children and the family home. Mike's legal bills, combined with the divorce settlement and his inability to work in his chosen profession, left him financially devastated. Last I heard, he was loading trucks at a warehouse in Cleveland, making $15 an hour and living in a studio apartment. His kids blame him for destroying 2 families, and according to Sarah, they refused to take his phone calls. Some mistakes cost more than others. Nicole moved into a studio apartment in a converted motel on the wrong side of town. She found work at a temp agency, doing data entry and filing for $12 an hour. Without her real estate income, she was surviving on about $24,000 a year, minus child support payments. She sees Tyler for 4 hours every other weekend at the Riverside Family Center, a cheerless building where divorced parents meet their children under the watchful eyes of court-appointed supervisors. Tyler goes because the court requires it, but he's never enthusiastic about the visits. "She keeps apologizing," he told me after one particularly difficult session. "Like saying sorry 30 times is going to make me forget what she did. She wants to know about school, about football, about my friends, but it's too late for that stuff. She should have cared about my life when she was living in it." 2 years later, everything had changed. Premier Security Solutions had doubled in size after acquiring Morrison Systems, our main competitor. The acquisition happened 6 months after Mike's departure, when Bill Morrison decided to retire and wanted to sell to someone he trusted. The timing was perfect. I had the capital from buying out Mike's shares, the reputation to reassure Morrison's clients, and the expertise to integrate their systems seamlessly. We were now the largest security firm in the tri-state area, with 47 employees and clients ranging from Fortune 500 companies to A-list celebrities. I'd personally overseen installations for 2 Supreme Court justices, 3 senators, and the governor's mansion. Tyler was thriving. Starting quarterback for his high school team, honor roll student, popular kid with a solid group of friends. We'd moved to a new house in Maple Hills. Ironically, one of the neighborhoods Nicole had pretended to show to her fictional client. It was a fresh start in a better school district, far enough from our old life to feel like a clean slate. I was dating Sarah Martinez, Tyler's sophomore English teacher. She was 32, divorced herself with no children, but a genuine affection for Tyler that went beyond the classroom. She was kind, intelligent, honest about her past, and refreshingly direct about her expectations. Everything Nicole had pretended to be, Sarah actually was. Tyler liked her, which mattered more to me than anything else. After what we'd been through, his ability to trust again was precious and fragile. The fact that he'd approved of Sarah, even encouraged our relationship, felt like a minor miracle. "She's good for you, Dad," he'd told me after Sarah had spent her first full weekend at our house. "You smile more when she's around. You laugh at her jokes even when they're terrible. And she actually listens when I talk about football instead of just pretending to care." The contrast with Nicole was obvious but unspoken. Sarah attended Tyler's games, celebrated his victories, commiserated over his defeats, and never made it about herself. She was present in the way Nicole had never been, even before the affair. We were at Tyler's homecoming game on a Friday night in October when Nicole appeared. She'd put on weight, stress eating, probably, and her hair was shorter and grayer. She was wearing clothes I didn't recognize, probably from whatever discount store she could afford on her temp agency salary. She took a seat in the bleachers on the opposite side of the field, far from where Sarah and I were sitting with the other parents. I watched her watching Tyler, saw her face light up when he threw a perfect touchdown pass in the second quarter. She started to wave at him when he looked toward the stands after the play, but Tyler's eyes found mine instead. He pointed at me and grinned, then jogged back to the huddle without acknowledging her presence. After the game, Tyler came over to where Sarah and I were waiting by the fence. He was still in his uniform, helmet tucked under his arm, grass stains on his jersey, grinning like he'd just conquered the world. "Did you see that pass? 62 yards right into Morrison's hands." "I saw it," I said, pulling him into a hug. "I'm proud of you, son." "We're both proud of you," Sarah added, ruffling his hair. "That was a college-level throw." Over Tyler's shoulder, I could see Nicole approaching. She walked slowly, hesitantly, like she wasn't sure she had the right to be there. She probably wasn't sure. Her visitation rights didn't extend to public events, and technically she was supposed to coordinate with me before having any contact with Tyler outside the supervised visits. Tyler saw her coming and stepped slightly behind me, not hiding but creating distance. "Mom." "Tyler, honey, you were amazing out there. That touchdown pass was incredible. Just like the ones your dad used to throw in high school." I'd never played football in high school. Nicole was mixing me up with someone else, probably Mike. It was a small thing, but it highlighted how disconnected she'd become from our lives, how little she actually knew about the details that mattered. "Thanks," Tyler said. His voice was polite but distant, the tone he used with strangers. Nicole looked at me, then at Sarah, then back at Tyler. Her eyes lingered on Sarah's hand resting casually on my arm, the easy familiarity between us that spoke of a real relationship built on actual trust. I was wondering if maybe you'd like to get ice cream after this. We could catch up, talk about school, your football season. I know a place that's open late. Tyler glanced at me, then shook his head. I can't. Dad and Miss Martinez are taking me to Danny's for victory burgers. It's our tradition. It wasn't a tradition. We'd never done it before. But Tyler was old enough to make his own choices about who he wanted in his life, and smart enough to create polite excuses when necessary. Nicole's face crumbled slightly, but she forced a smile. Oh, okay. Maybe next time. Maybe. Well, congratulations again. You're really turning into an amazing young man. She looked at me. You're doing a good job with him, James. I know this isn't easy. It was the first time she'd acknowledged that I was raising our son alone. The first hint of recognition that her choices had consequences beyond her own life. Thanks, I said. We walked toward the parking lot, Sarah and Tyler talking animatedly about the game, me listening to my son's excitement about the upcoming playoffs and his plans for the off-season. Behind us, I could hear Nicole's footsteps following for a few yards before stopping. When I looked back, she was standing alone by the fence, watching us drive away in my truck. Sarah's hand was on my shoulder. Tyler was recounting every play of the game from the passenger seat, and for the first time in years, everything felt exactly as it should be. I felt no satisfaction in that moment, no sense of victory or vindication. The anger had burned out long ago, leaving only the quiet certainty that some betrayals can't be forgiven, some trust can't be rebuilt, some relationships can't survive the weight of systematic deception. Mike had been my best friend since college, my business partner, the man I'd trusted with my livelihood and my family's security. Nicole had been my wife for 8 years, the mother of my child, the person I'd promised to love and trust above all others. They'd both chosen to throw that away for Thursday afternoon encounters in my bedroom, using my own security expertise against me, turning my business into a tool for adultery. I'd simply chosen to let them live with the consequences of their choices. The security footage never lies. It shows you exactly what's happening when you think you're safe, when you think you're protected, when you think the people you trust most would never hurt you. It captures truth in high definition, timestamps and all, leaving no room for denial or revision. Sometimes the truth is the most devastating weapon of all, more destructive than anger, more final than revenge. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply document reality and let it speak for itself. Tyler scored 2 more touchdowns that season, leading his team to the state quarterfinals before losing to a school twice their size. Nicole missed most of the games. Mike never called to congratulate his godson on the best season of his young career. The supervised visitation sessions grew more awkward as Tyler got older and less willing to pretend everything was normal. He'd sit across from Nicole in the sterile visiting room, answering her questions with polite monosyllables, counting down the hours until he could leave. She keeps asking if I'm angry with her, he told me, after one particularly difficult visit. But I'm not angry anymore. I just don't know who she is. The mom I thought I had wouldn't have done what she did. So I guess I never really had that mom at all. 3 years after the divorce, Nicole petitioned the court to modify the custody arrangement, seeking unsupervised visitation and expanded time with Tyler. She'd completed her parenting classes, maintained stable employment for 18 months, and claimed to have rebuilt her life. The hearing lasted 30 minutes. Tyler, now 16 and legally able to speak for himself in court, was clear and unwavering in his testimony. I don't want expanded visitation. he told Judge Williams. The current arrangement is fine. I see her every other weekend. We talk about school and sports, and then I go home. That's enough. Is there anything your mother could do to rebuild your relationship? The judge asked. Tyler considered the question carefully. She could build a time machine and undo the last 4 years. But since that's not possible, I think what we have now is probably the best we can do. Nicole's petition was denied. 6 months later, she stopped showing up for the supervised visits altogether. Tyler wasn't surprised. She finally figured out what I knew all along, he said. You can't fix some things just by wanting them to be different. Some mistakes are permanent. The last I heard, Nicole had moved to another state, chasing a new job opportunity and a chance to start over somewhere. Nobody knew her story. She sends Tyler birthday cards and Christmas presents, which he accepts politely but without enthusiasm. Mike resurfaced briefly 2 years ago when his mother died. He came back to town for the funeral, and several people mentioned seeing him around. He looked older, grayer, worn down by years of manual labor and financial struggle. He didn't try to contact me or Tyler. After the funeral, he disappeared again. Some people said he'd moved to Florida, others thought California. Nobody seemed to know for sure, and nobody seemed particularly interested in finding out. Tyler's 18 now, starting his freshman year at State University on a partial academic scholarship. He's majoring in computer science with a minor in business, talking about maybe starting his own company someday. He's confident, focused, surrounded by friends who respect him and professors who see his potential. Sarah and I got married last summer in a small ceremony in her parents' backyard. Tyler walked her down the aisle. Her father had died when she was in college, and gave a toast that made everyone cry happy tears. He called her the mom I chose, and thanked her for teaching him that families aren't just about blood, they're about who shows up when it matters. We're expecting our first child together in the spring. Tyler's excited about being a big brother, already planning to teach the baby about football and security systems, and the importance of keeping your word. Sometimes he asks about Nicole, whether I think she's happy, whether I ever regret how things ended. I tell him the truth, that I hope she's found peace, but that protecting him was always my first priority, and I'd make the same choices again if I had to. Do you think she ever really loved us? He asked me once, when he was 15 and trying to understand how someone could destroy a family for an affair. I think she loved the idea of us, I said. But love is more than feelings. It's choices. Every day, you choose to be honest or deceptive, faithful or unfaithful, present or absent. She made her choices, and we lived with the consequences. Tyler nodded like that made sense to him. What about Mike? Do you miss being friends with him? I miss the friend I thought he was. But that person never really existed. The real Mike was someone who could use his position in our business to betray my family. I can't miss someone who was never there in the first place. The security business continues to thrive. We've expanded into corporate consulting, helping companies protect their intellectual property and trade secrets. I've testified before Congress about cybersecurity threats, been quoted in the Wall Street Journal about corporate espionage, and been featured on the cover of Security Today magazine as Entrepreneur of the Year. The success feels good, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that Tyler trusts me, respects me, and knows that I'll always tell him the truth, even when it's complicated or painful. Sarah understands that too. She knows our history, accepts our baggage, and loves us anyway. She never tries to replace Nicole in Tyler's memory or compete with a ghost. She just shows up every day, making our lives better by being present and honest and reliable. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never discovered the pattern in the security footage, if Mike and Nicole had been more careful about covering their tracks. Would they have continued the affair indefinitely? Would I have spent years living a lie, trusting people who were systematically deceiving me? I'm grateful I found out when I did. Not because of the revenge or the justice or the satisfaction of seeing them face consequences. I'm grateful because living with truth, even painful truth, is always better than living with comfortable lies. The security cameras in our new house are state-of-the-art military-grade systems with redundant backups and tamper-proof storage. But more importantly, they're protecting a family built on honesty, trust, and genuine love. Some things once broken can never be repaired. But sometimes if you're willing to clear away the debris and start fresh, you can build something better in their place. The footage never lies. But more importantly, neither do we.